Hey there, boys and girls. Today we're going to be learning about frogs and toads. No, not those frogs and toads. Those frogs and toads. Now, frogs and toads are technically the same group of amphibians. They're different from newts or caecilians, but there are some traits that make frogs that are frogs different from frogs that are toads. So to keep track of those differences, I want you to get a piece of paper and divide it into two sections, one for frogs and one for toads. As we work, you're going to make drawings that will help remind you of characteristics of frogs and characteristics of toads so you can tell the difference. The first difference between frogs and toads comes at the very, very beginning of their life. Now, because frogs and toads are amphibians, they begin their life in the water. Amphibians all start their life in the water and then can spend time on land as adults. Now, when toads are born, their eggs are in a chain formation. You can see it looks like a long string. When frogs lay eggs, they lay them into clumps like that. So even before you can see that they are a frog or a toad, you can tell the difference between a frog and a toad. Let's draw to help us remember the difference between frogs and toads. I'm going to work my way from the top and go down. So to remember that toads' eggs are laid in a chain, I'm going to draw a chain of eggs. And remember that frogs' eggs are laid in clumps. I'm going to draw a clump of frog eggs. You might remember that the jelly around them helps to protect them from getting eaten by predators. Once the eggs have hatched and they have become adult amphibians, the next way to tell a frog apart from a toad is by the skin. Frogs have smooth, slimy skin, and toads tend to have dry and bumpy skin. Don't worry, it won't give you warts. Let's sketch to remind us of the difference between frogs and toads' skin. So frogs' skin is smooth and moist. Toad's skin is rough and bumpy. One thing you can do to make this clearer is if you want to write skin and eggs, you can, but you might not run out of room. So we've got frogs' eggs that are in clumped and their skin is smooth and moist. Toads' eggs are in chains and their skin is dry and bumpy. The next difference between frogs and toads is their eyes. Frogs tend to have eyes that are bulgy and sit on top of their head. Sometimes a frog will be able to be mostly under the water, but its eyes are still above the water looking for food. So their eyes are high and round. Toads' eyes, on the other hand, tend to be lower on their heads, and they kind of have a football or almond shape that's a little different than frogs' eyes. Let's add our reminders. I'm going to draw just the top of a frog's head. It's okay if it's a little cartoony. And there are its eyes, bulgy and high up on the head. I'm going to draw the toad's, here's the top of the toad's head, and I'm going to draw the toad's eyes as more of a round or a football shape. If you want, you can add pupils so you can tell where the frog or the toad is looking. So, take a look at what is different between frogs and toads. We've learned about their eggs, their skin, and their eyes. The next difference with frogs and toads is how they move. Frogs tend to be really big jumpers. Look at that guy go. Because he's such a big jumper, because they can jump so far, their legs tend to be much longer than toad legs. Toads, on the other hand, are not big jumpers. They're more like hoppers. So their legs tend to be shorter and a little fatter than frogs' legs. Let's do our reminders. So because I'm running out of space, I'm going to draw my frog's legs bent, because that's how they often are. So we've got a leg that's slender and longer and ready to do that big jump. And for our toad, we're going to do a shorter, fatter leg that's ready for those hops that toads use to get around. Let's look at where adult frogs and toads tend to spend their day. Because they're amphibians, like all amphibians, they are born as eggs in the water, and then as adults, they can move between land and water. However, frogs in general tend to prefer moist environments and will so stay closer to sources of water. Toads, however, can spend more of their time out of the water. So you'll often find toads farther from water than you will their buddies, the frogs. Let's get that paper out. So for frogs, to remind us that they tend to live closer to water, just going to draw a little cartoon water here. And for toads, they tend to live closer to land. So I'm going to draw a hill with some grass on it to show that they can live on land more than in water. The last major difference between frogs and toads is in their teeth. No, not that kind of teeth. That kind of teeth. Frogs have something called vomeron teeth. They're very, very small teeth on the inside of the top of its mouth, and what the frog uses those for is to hold on to its prey. Toads don't have vomeron teeth. They don't even have that kind of teeth. So for our reminder, I'm just going to write and draw some teeth in the frog column. I'm not even going to be worried about drawing vomeron teeth. I'm just going to draw regular teeth as a reminder. And for the toads, I'm just not going to draw anything because they don't have any teeth. So the next time you're taking a look at an amphibian from this group, you have now lots of clues to tell if that amphibian is a frog or a toad.